Dave, we have, of course, the card coming up on FX. We got tickets on sale for UFC 162. Where do you want to start?
Wherever you want to start, man. Your show, it's up to you.
Wow. All right. Well, let's start with, they're billing it as what, FX 8?
Yeah, UFC on FX 8 this Saturday night. Finally, the drought is over. 2 Saturdays in a row without UFC fights.
Oh, my gosh. What have people done?
I don't know.
Your girlfriend must have liked it, though.
Yeah, it was all right, but I struggled, I like fights on Saturday night.
Wow. All right.
I watched a Dick Cheney documentary last night. That's what I did instead of watching fighting.
Wow.
It was interesting stuff, though. It was very good. Vitor Belfort, Luke Rockhold, Saturday night. Should be a very interesting fight in Brazil. Belfort coming off a knockout victory over Michael Bisping. Luke Rockhold is the Strikeforce middleweight champion, coming to make his UFC debut against a legend of the sport. It's a big fight for Rockhold to win here, and he's right up in there for title contention. Vitor Belfort, if he beats Luke Rockhold, it's going to be hard to deny him a title shot with maybe another victory. I know a lot of people don't want to see him fight Anderson Silva again, but if he keeps going through the middleweight division, it's going to be hard to deny Vitor another shot. And, of course, it all ties into, what you wanted to talk about as well, UFC 162, which is Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman. So middleweights are the focus, no doubt, and a big middleweight fight in the main event. And the co-main event is Ronaldo Jacare Souza, the former Strikeforce champion, also making his UFC debut on the card on Saturday night.
Now, you mentioned the venue for the FX card is in Brazil. Does it make it more exciting watching UFC in an excitable country like that just is rabid about MMA?
Yeah, the Brazil crowd makes it more interesting, no doubt. Even on TV, you can feel their passion coming through. They're very loud, very much in favor of their home country guys, and very much against guys that aren't from their home country. So it's very, very passionate.
Hostile territory for the opponents.
Very hostile. Thankfully, they chant things that
you can't understand.
But, things like you're gonna die in Portuguese.
Oh, my gosh.
That's one of the chants that's pretty, I think, the most popular from the Brazilian crowd against the guys that are fighting their home country guys. You're gonna die, but in Portuguese. So the Americans, they don't understand it, so it's okay.
Wow. Okay. I'm still trying to process that. Dave, UFC 160 is when is that coming down?
That'll be the following Saturday night. So we're talking.
That's a
couple
pay-per-view.
Weeks. Yeah, that'll be the next pay-per-view. It'll be Cain Velasquez defending the heavyweight championship of the world against Antonio Silva. Junior Dos Santos taking on Mark Hunt in the co-main event. It's going to be a great card.
Now, in terms of Antonio Silva, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, he earned this title shot by knocking out Alistair Overeem. Nobody really thought he was going to do that, but he has fought Cain Velasquez before and got destroyed. Was knocked out in the second round. He was a bloody mess. We'll see how this turns out.
He's a big underdog, obviously.
Yeah, huge. He's a huge underdog to Cain Velasquez, and Cain's looking pretty unstoppable. If Junior Dos Santos is able to get past Mark Hunt, he's been promised a title shot, so he could see a third fight now between Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez if they're both victorious in a couple weeks' time.
Game Points here on TSN 690. We're talking some MMA with Dave Simon of Ringside Report Radio, ringsidereport.net. And then in terms of some of the other matches on that 160 card, what else to look out for? I'm looking at Teixeira against Tahuna.
Yeah, Glover Teixeira and James Tahuna, two very tough up-and-coming light heavyweights. It'll be a big test for both of them. I think a win in this fight for Tahuna or Teixeira bumps them up into the upper echelon of the light heavyweight division against some top 10 guys. And, we'll see where they go from there. I think it's going to be a big test for both guys. Glover coming off a big win over Rampage Jackson, which was, significant for his career. But James Tahuna, a guy who's more on the rise. So it'll be an interesting test. Two guys that like to throw hands, great chins, and heavy hands, which usually makes for a pretty interesting fight. But that's going to be a night of the heavyweights. Junior Dos Santos against Mark Hunt. You talk about great chins and heavy hands. Those two guys have those, no doubt. And, of course, the heavyweight championship on the line in the main event. Canadian, as far as a Canadian fighter on that card, TJ Grant takes on Gray Maynard. A win for TJ or Gray Maynard puts them against Benson Henderson for the UFC lightweight championship. So we could see the man from Nova Scotia, TJ Grant, get a lightweight title shot against Ben Henderson with a win in a couple weeks' time at UFC 160 on pay-per-view. So very, very big for Canada here as far as world championships.
Now, speaking of Canada, I wanted to give me a local angle, something happening Montreal related. Any fighter from Montreal or from the province of Quebec, or at least just training here, whether it's UFC or another organization, anything happening with anybody lately in terms of news or upcoming fights?
Well, Challenge MMA actually did an event last night in Saint Jean. This guy, Alex Garcia, who trains out of the TriStar Gym, he's from the Dominican Republic but lives here and trains here. He picked up another win last night, and there's a lot of hype around him perhaps going into the UFC. I think he's definitely deserving of a shot inside that octagon.
Are the UFC scouting in events like this when a local promotion puts on, or they're just making a couple of calls and saying, hey, send me the videotape?
Yeah, it really is, the manager that has to push and make your name known to UFC matchmakers and the people that make the decision to sign you to the UFC. So there aren't any UFC scouts per se, but they do have an eye on every show that's going on, and they're definitely paying attention to the whole sport and who's making a name for themselves. And, it really goes like, you have to make contact to the UFC, show them your fights, tell them who you are, tell them what your record is, and then they'll give you some sort of indication. They'll either say, well, we're not really looking for new fighters right now, or win a couple fights and then call us again and we'll have a place for you. So it really depends on, what you do and who your manager is and stuff like that. But definitely the UFC has their eye on the whole sport.
Now, Dave, we're chatting with Dave Simon from Ringside Report Radio. In terms of the UFC, how it works with any fighter, is it a multiple fight deal when they sign with the UFC, or can someone like that, can she just come in, fight once, and then go back to wherever she is?
No, it's a multiple fight deal always. The UFC at least a 3-fight deal, usually a 6 to 8 fight deal. If you're somebody that they want in the promotion coming in, you got to look at it as it's a business, right? If Cyborg signs to a 1-fight deal, beats Ronda Rousey, and then goes away, well, then the UFC is kind of screwed because they don't have the best fighter in the world. So they're always trying to lock down these fighters for multiple fight contracts that they can end whenever they want. I mean, the UFC can cut you midway through a contract, but you have to stick out the duration of your contract.
Dave, what do you have coming up on Wednesday?
We will maybe speak to some of the headliners of UFC on FX8. We're definitely going to start previewing the fights. We're working on a couple of things, so some surprises maybe in line on Wednesday night. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveSimonMMA, and we'll get you caught up on that. And we'll see. We'll see. Whatever comes up in the next couple of days in MMA, that's what we'll be talking about on Wednesday. It's too far away for Wednesday, man. I don't know.
Mo, you want to add anything, or?
Well, I always listen to Dave's show Wednesday nights. Always.
Call him the best color guy in the business. Game points here on TSN 6-9.
By,
I didn't understand
great analysis. It's a major league reference. You don't remember Bob Uecker and the guy in the booth?
No, I do listen to the show every Wednesday night. He always has a plethora of all-star insiders on his show, and it's always enticing to listen in as I get ready to go to bed.
There you go.
All right, Mo.
It's a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, I was quite surprised, quite taken aback by that.
Do you listen in
to Dave Simon's program?
Yes.
Normally Friday nights.
Wednesday's the big night for him, my
on
friend.
Friday.
I listen to you guys on Tuesday night.
No, you don't.
Yeah, well, I did this past week.
Really?
Yeah, because I turned on the TV and the Canadians were winning 2-0. So I figured, was that this Tuesday or last Tuesday? Did they play this past Tuesday?
Yes, they did.
And they were winning 2-0, right?
Yes.
And they were going into the third period, so I figured, the Canadians won, I'll just turn it off. And then I saw you say something on Twitter about, be quiet Canadians fans, and I was like, why are they so angry? And then I turned on your show, and I found out they had lost.
It's like when the 1-2-3 kid beat Razor Ramon.
All right.
The halves were the Ramon, and